If I'm honest, I don't think social media made me happier. I think it made me busier, more distracted, and strangely dissatisfied. And it took me years to notice the difference. And here's the thing, I wasn't unhappy. That's what made it so hard to see. I wasn't miserable, I wasn't struggling. I just had this low, quiet feeling that something wasn't quite right. Like I was always slightly behind, always slightly restless, always reaching for something without knowing what it was.
And then one day, not dramatically, not after some big moment, I just started wondering, is this actually how I want to spend my attention?
Right.
Is this what I'm choosing, or is this just what happens automatically?
Because there's a real difference between those two things. And most of us, if we're honest, have never really stopped to ask which one it is. This is the English Conversation Podcast. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Mike, already distracted, truly fitting for today.
It really is. Welcome, everyone. So, this podcast is about real life. Real conversations, real situations expressed in natural, everyday English. The kind of English people actually use when they're talking to each other. Not textbook language, not formal, just real.
And today we're talking about something that touches almost everyone's daily life right now. Social media, what our actual relationship with it looks like, day to day, and what a single day without it might feel like.
Which sounds like a small question, but the more we talked about it while preparing for this episode, the more interesting it got.
It really did. Okay, before we go further, quick question for everyone listening or watching. We're genuinely curious. How many hours a day do you spend on social media?
Yeah.
Just think about it honestly for a second, and if you want, drop a short answer in the comments. Something simple. 1 hour, 30 minutes, 2 hours, more than 3. No judgment at all. We just want to know.
Because I think a lot of people have a number in their head, and then they check their screen time, and the actual number is quite different from what they imagined.
Very different. The first time I checked mine properly, I thought I'd see maybe an hour and a half. It was pushing 3 hours, and I genuinely couldn't account for where it all went.
So leave your number in the comments. We love reading them, and honestly, it's a useful thing to know about yourself.
All right, let's go back to what Sarah said at the very beginning, because I think it's worth sitting with for a moment. I don't think social media made me happier. I think it made me busier, more distracted, and strangely dissatisfied. That's a pretty honest thing to say.
It is, and it took me a long time to actually put it into words like that. Because when you're in the middle of a habit, you don't really examine it. It's just what you do.
Right.
You wake up, you scroll. You have a free minute, you scroll. You sit down to eat, you scroll. It becomes so woven into the day that it stops feeling like a behavior at all. It just feels like life.
And the dissatisfaction, can you explain that more? Because I think that's the part that's hardest to describe.
Yeah, so it's not like I was scrolling and thinking, I hate this. It was more subtle than that. It was like, after a long session on my phone, I'd put it down and feel slightly flat. Not sad, not upset, just less than I did before I picked it up. Like something had been taken without my noticing.
Like a slow leak.
Exactly like a slow leak. And because it was gradual, and because nothing dramatic happened to cause it, I never connected it to the scrolling. I just thought I was a little tired or a little off that day. It took a really long time to see the pattern.
And the busier part, what did you mean by that?
So, being on social media creates a strange kind of busyness. You're always consuming, always processing, always reacting, even if only internally. Someone posts something and you have a small reaction. You agree, you disagree, you feel envious, you feel happy for them, whatever. And those small reactions stack up throughout the day, one after another. So even though you're just sitting there looking at a screen, your brain is actually working quite hard.
Processing a lot of other people's lives.
Right, a huge amount of other people's content, opinions, images, news, humor, drama, all going through your head. And by the end of the day, your brain is tired, but it's tired in a way that feels strange because you haven't done anything obviously tiring. You've just been sitting and scrolling.
That's a really interesting way to think about it, because I think a lot of people, when they feel tired after a day of heavy phone use, chalk it up to something else. Work, stress, not sleeping enough.
And those things might be true too, but the consumption is also part of it.
It adds to the load without you really noticing it's doing that.
Exactly. And the distracted part, that one I think is the most obvious, but it's also the one people dismiss most easily. Like, yeah, social media is a distraction. We know that. But I think the distraction goes deeper than just losing time on your phone. I think it changes how you're able to pay attention, even when you're not on your phone.
That's the part that surprised me the most when I started thinking about it.
Let's talk about the automatic part of this, because I think it's really central to everything.
What do you mean by automatic?
I mean, the way you reach for your phone without deciding to, without any conscious thought. There's a small pause in whatever you're doing, waiting for something, a moment between tasks, a few seconds of nothing, and your hand just goes to your phone. You open an app, and then a moment later, you kind of surface and think, wait, I wasn't planning to do this.
And the thing is, it happens so fast that you often don't even catch it. The phone is in your hand and you're already scrolling before any part of your brain has registered a decision.
It's genuinely automatic, like adjusting your posture or blinking, not a choice, just a reflex.
And I think most people, if they actually paid attention for one day, like really watch themselves, would be surprised at how many times that happens. Not intentional use, reflexive use.
I tried to do that once. Just for one day, I didn't change anything. I just tried to notice every time I reached for my phone. And it was uncomfortable, honestly, because it was a lot, way more than I would have estimated.
What does a lot look like?
I'd put my phone down and then pick it up again 2 or 3 minutes later. Not because anything had changed, not because I was expecting a message, just because I picked it up. The urge was already completing itself before I'd thought about it.
And you'd already checked it, and there was nothing new, but you still checked it.
Still checked, because the habit doesn't really care whether there's something to find. The motion itself has become the thing.
Which is interesting because you'd think the reward would be finding something, a message, a like, a funny video, and sometimes it is. But a lot of the time, there's nothing particularly rewarding. You scroll a bit, you put it down, you feel about the same, and then you do it again.
Which, when you describe it that way, sounds a bit strange. But in the moment, it just feels normal. Because it is normal, at this point, for most people.
Let's talk about time, because this is where I think people get most surprised when they actually look at the numbers.
Yes, because there's a real difference between time you decide to spend on social media and time that just gets absorbed without you noticing.
Planned versus automatic again.
Right. If you decide, I'm going to sit down for 20 minutes and catch up on what people are posting, maybe watch a few videos, that's a choice. You know what you're doing. You probably stop more or less when you plan to.
But the automatic use doesn't work like that because you never made a decision to start, you also never make a decision to stop. You just drift until something pulls you out of it.
And the time adds up in a way that's hard to track because it comes in small pieces. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 15 minutes during lunch, 20 minutes before bed. None of those feel significant on their own. But at the end of the day, you look at your screen time and the total is something like 3 hours, and you genuinely don't know where it went.
Because it didn't go anywhere in one big chunk. It just leaked out in small amounts all day.
All day, every day, without it ever feeling like you were spending that much time.
I had a moment last year where I checked my weekly screen time report. You know how your phone gives you that at the end of the week? And it said I'd averaged just over 3.5 hours a day on social media apps. And I stared at that number for a while because I just couldn't picture when that was happening.
Because you weren't sitting down for 3.5-hour sessions. It was just constantly threaded through everything else.
Every gap, every pause, every moment between things.
And the strange thing is, even though that time passed, you often don't have much to show for it mentally. Like, you couldn't tell me what you saw during most of that time. It just moved past your eyes.
Whereas if you'd spend 3.5 hours reading or watching films or doing something else, you'd have something, a memory of the experience, something you learned, something you thought about. Scrolling just kind of evaporates.
And I think that's part of what creates the dissatisfaction I mentioned at the beginning. You've spent time, real time, a significant amount, and at the end, you're not sure what you have from it.
The emotional side of this is something I want to get into because I think it's the most quietly powerful piece of all of this.
And the hardest to see clearly. Yeah, it's more like a background shift. You're fine, you pick up your phone, you scroll for a while, you put it down, and you're slightly less fine. Not bad, not upset, just a degree or two lower than before.
Because it's not dramatic. It's not like you scroll through Instagram and burst into tears. It's much quieter than that.
And the comparison piece is a big part of this. Not dramatic jealousy. I want to be really clear about that because I think people sometimes hear social media and comparison and think, obviously, I know not to compare myself to influencers, but it's not really about that.
And because it's such a small shift, you don't notice the cause. You don't think, oh, that's the scrolling. You just think you're a bit tired or it's just that kind of day.
It's seeing your friend's weekend trip, not a famous person, just a friend, and having a tiny reaction. Not jealousy, exactly, just a small, vague sense of, I don't know, like your weekend was slightly smaller, or like life is fuller for other people.
It's much more ordinary than that.
But the feeling doesn't care what your brain knows.
And you know it's not rational. You know that what people post is curated. You know you're only seeing highlights. Your brain knows all of this.
And it's not even always about other people's experiences. Sometimes it's opinions. You see a lot of strong opinions on social media. Everyone has a take on everything, and a lot of those takes are presented very confidently. And after a while, that environment starts to make you feel like everyone else has things figured out in a way that you don't.
Right. The feeling does its own thing regardless. Everyone seems very certain, and if you're just kind of living your life without particularly strong opinions about everything, you can start to feel like you're missing something, like everyone's in on something you're not.
Which is not real, but the feeling is still there. There's also the attention piece, and this one I find really interesting because it affects you even when you're not on social media.
And you carry it into your day without knowing where it came from.
So social media is built around constant switching. One post, then another, then an ad, then a story, then a reel, then back to posts. Nothing stays still. Everything changes within seconds. And if that's the environment you spend a lot of time in, your brain starts to calibrate to that rhythm.
Explain that.
And then when you try to do something that requires staying in one place, reading a long article, writing something, having a conversation without distractions, working on one task for an hour, your brain is uncomfortable. Not dramatically, just fidgety, like it's waiting for the next thing to appear.
It gets used to fast switching. I feel that with reading especially. I used to read for long stretches without thinking about it. And now, and I'm not proud of this, I notice that after a few pages, I have a small urge to check something, like my attention is pulling toward a screen even though I'm holding a book.
And the book hasn't done anything wrong. It's just slower. It doesn't update. It doesn't give you new information every 3 seconds. And your brain has been trained to expect that. And this doesn't mean you can't read anymore. You can, but it takes more conscious effort than it probably should. You have to sort of override that pull rather than just reading naturally.
So the stillness of a book feels almost wrong, or at least harder than it used to.
And I think this is one of the less talked about costs of heavy social media use. Not the time, not even the mood, but the way it affects your ability to settle into one thing and stay there.
Which is tiring in a way it didn't used to be.
Right. And that's something that really only becomes visible when you take a break from it, when you remove the constant switching and let your brain just be in one place for a while.
The quality of your attention, not just the quantity of your time.
From the beginning, morning.
Which brings us to the heart of today's episode. One day without social media. Let's actually walk through what that might look like, realistically.
Normally, the alarm becomes the start of scrolling. I turn it off and I'm already opening Instagram. It's one motion, alarm off, app open, barely a second between them.
Alarm goes off. Normally, what happens?
So on a no social media morning, the alarm goes off, you turn it off, and then there's nothing. Just you lying there, awake, with no feed to open.
Same. It's completely automatic. The alarm is almost like a trigger.
Your hand might actually move toward the phone anyway, just by habit. And then you remember, oh, not today.
Which sounds peaceful when you describe it, but I think in practice, the first thing you'd feel is a kind of incompleteness, like you reached for something and it wasn't there.
Then you just lie there, which sounds very simple, but is actually quite unusual for a lot of people. Just lying there, awake. letting your brain wake up at its own pace without immediately filling it with other people's content.
And then what?
But after those first few minutes, I think something shifts because your morning thoughts are just your thoughts. What you need to do today, how you slept, what you're looking forward to, what's slightly worrying you, without the overlay of 20 other people's lives already loaded into your head.
I think the first few minutes would feel strange, almost uncomfortable. Not because anything bad is happening, just because it's unfamiliar. Your routine has a gap, and gaps feel wrong at first. And that's actually a significant difference, because normally, by the time I finish my morning scroll, I've already processed, in a light way, but still, what maybe 15 or 20 people are doing. Their photos, their opinions, their news, and I haven't even gotten out of bed.
So your head is already quite full before your day has technically started. You get to fill it yourself with what actually belongs to your day.
And on the no social media morning, it's just empty. In a good way, like a desk that's been cleared.
These are actually the moments where the habit is most active because there are so many small pauses in a morning routine. Waiting for the coffee to brew, waiting for the shower to warm up, standing at the mirror. These are all moments where the phone normally appears.
What about making coffee, getting ready? Those in-between moments in the morning routine.
You stand there, you wait, you look around. You might think about something or of nothing in particular.
And without it, those moments are just moments.
Or just slightly boring if you're being straightforward. Both are definitely true. But there's also something in those moments when you actually let them be still, where your brain does something it doesn't normally get to do in the morning. It just settles. It sort of finds its own level before the day starts pulling it in different directions.
Which sounds almost meditative if you say it nicely. Both can be true.
And I think that matters, not in a dramatic, life-changing way, but in a small, daily way. How you start your morning does affect how your head feels for the first few hours.
Rather than being immediately yanked into a feed.
Even if the noise is just content on a screen, it's still input. It's still your brain working from the first moment you open your eyes.
A quiet start versus a noisy start.
Breakfast is a big one because I think eating and scrolling have become so connected for a lot of people that they barely feel like separate activities anymore.
Okay, moving through the day, breakfast.
And it's become so normal that eating without a screen feels like something is missing, like the meal is incomplete somehow.
I eat breakfast with my phone almost every single morning. I'm not proud of that, but it's just true. Food in one hand, phone in the other, or phone propped up against something while I eat.
And I think the first reaction for most people would be, this feels weirdly quiet.
On the no social media morning, you sit down to eat, and the table is just a table. Your food is just your food. Nothing else is happening.
I tried this once. I actually sat at the table, ate my breakfast properly, and just looked out the window. And for the first couple of minutes, I genuinely didn't know what to do with myself. My hands kept wanting to reach for something.
Because it is quiet. It's just you eating in whatever room you're in, which is what breakfast used to always be, and now feels almost unusual.
Yeah, but then it passed, and I actually tasted my food, which sounds like a joke, but isn't. When you're scrolling while eating, you're not really eating. You're just refueling while your attention is elsewhere.
Just habitual reaching, even without the phone.
And without the screen, the meal becomes the experience, which was honestly nicer. It's a small thing, but it was nicer.
Food becomes fuel, and the screen becomes the actual experience.
And those gaps are actually necessary. You need breaks. Your brain needs to step away from focused work periodically. The question is what you do with those gaps.
Workday. Let's talk about this because I think work is where it gets complicated. Because a lot of social media use during the workday happens in the gaps. Breaks, transitions, moments between tasks.
Automatic. Every gap the phone fills it.
And for most of us, the answer is phone.
It just shifted to a different kind of work, a lighter kind, but still something.
And the thing is, scrolling social media during a break isn't actually resting. You're still consuming, still processing, still having small reactions to things. Your brain is still working. Whereas if you took a break and actually rested, stepped outside for 5 minutes, looked out the window, got a glass of water, and stood in the kitchen doing nothing, that would be more restorative because your brain would actually have a pause.
Instead of just switching channels, which is a trade-off, right? Because scrolling is genuinely entertaining. That's not nothing. It's pleasant. It's stimulating. Staring out the window is not as immediately pleasurable.
Right. Scrolling is channel switching. It's not off time. And on a no social media workday, the breaks might actually feel more like breaks, even if they also feel less entertaining.
Like the break didn't quite do its job.
But you might return to your work feeling more rested, whereas after a scrolling break, you sometimes feel slightly more scattered than before.
What about waiting? Because I think waiting is one of the most revealing things when it comes to phone habits.
Like you came back having consumed a lot, but having restored nothing. Oh, absolutely. Because the way most people handle waiting now, waiting in a queue, waiting for someone who's 5 minutes late, waiting for a coffee order, waiting at a red light if you're a passenger, is phone out, app open, time disappears.
And we've gotten so good at eliminating the experience of waiting that we've almost forgotten what it feels like.
On a no social media day, you wait in line at the supermarket, and you just wait. You look around. You notice who's in front of you. You might hear a conversation nearby. You look at the products on the shelf next to you. And the time passes, but you feel it passing.
Which can feel slow. I don't want to pretend it doesn't. And you'll put it back in your pocket and just stand there.
It genuinely can feel slow. 2 minutes can feel like 4. And your hand will probably reach for your phone without you deciding to.
And I wonder what we lose when we never let ourselves just wait. Because waiting, real waiting, without entertainment, is also when you think, when your brain idles and produces things on its own. Random thoughts, old memories, ideas, things you've been meaning to sort through.
Which is fine. That's okay. Waiting is just a part of being alive. It was always a part of being alive. We just got very good at hiding it.
It's the difference between a busy road and a quiet side street. The quiet street is still a street, but things can happen on it that can't happen on the busy road because there's simply no room.
The kind of thinking that doesn't happen when you're actively directing your attention somewhere.
And for a lot of people, social media has turned every street into a busy road.
Your mind needs some quiet streets.
The hardest by far, because the evening is when most people unwind, and social media is so deeply built into that unwinding that it almost is the unwinding for a lot of people.
Let's get to the evening because I think that's genuinely the hardest part of a no social media day. You come home or you finish work. You sit down, you reach for your phone, maybe you put something on TV at the same time and you're half watching, half scrolling, fully relaxing. Or that's what it feels like.
Though I'd question whether it's fully relaxing. Because again, you're still consuming, still processing. Your body's resting, but your brain is still doing something.
Fair, and I don't think that's entirely wrong. Enjoying content in the evening is a completely normal and legitimate thing to do.
But it feels like relaxing because the content is pleasant and you're not working, and that's kind of the definition most people use. I think you'd notice the tiredness more clearly because normally scrolling gives you a low-level stimulation that kind of masks how tired you actually are. Without it, you might sit down and think, oh, I'm actually quite tired.
But on the no social media evening, what happens instead?
And you might go to bed earlier, or you might read or watch something properly, actually watching it, fully engaged, not half watching while scrolling.
Which is information, useful information.
Rather than divided between the TV and the feed.
That's something I've noticed on low phone days. I actually enjoy what I'm watching more because all of my attention is actually on it.
And maybe you'd have a longer conversation with someone you live with, or call a friend, or just sit quietly for a while, which some people find uncomfortable and some people find actually nice.
And you can watch one thing and feel like you had an experience, rather than watching something and scrolling at the same time and reaching the end without really remembering either properly.
Like your nervous system slowly realizes it doesn't need to be on alert for new information, and it can just be still.
I think most people would be surprised to find it's a mix of both, slightly uncomfortable at first and then gradually more comfortable.
I want to go back to something I said at the very start, because I've been thinking about it while we've been talking. The strangely dissatisfied part, because I think that's the most important part to really understand.
Which is its own kind of relief.
It's strange because you can't easily point to a reason. With most things that make you feel bad, there's a clear cause. You're tired because you didn't sleep. You're stressed because you have a deadline. You're sad because something happened. But this dissatisfaction doesn't have a clear name. It just sits there.
Why is it strange, the dissatisfaction?
Exactly. And I think a lot of people carry this feeling without ever connecting it to their phone habits, because the phone is just there. It's always been there, or at least it feels that way. It's such a constant part of life that it's basically invisible as a cause of anything.
And you can't reason your way out of it because you don't know what you're reasoning against.
Right. You don't notice air because you're always in it. And social media has become like that for a lot of people. You're always in it, so you never think to ask what life feels like without it.
It's like trying to notice the air.
And I think that's the real value of a day without it. Not that it solves anything, not that it's some kind of reset or cure, just that it gives you enough distance to actually see what you've been standing in.
Until you actually step outside for a moment.
Just a little. Sometimes that's all you need.
A little bit of perspective. Something I want to name because I think it's important. We've been talking a lot about the effects of social media, but we haven't said much about what it genuinely offers. And I don't think we should only look at one side.
That's fair, and it's important.
Because social media is how a lot of people stay connected. With family who live far away, with friends they don't see often enough, with communities around things they care about, hobbies, interests, support networks.
And it's genuinely a source of information and entertainment and humor and creativity. There's a lot of good in it. Real good, not just theoretical good.
So this isn't a conversation about getting rid of it. It's more about what does your actual relationship with it look like? And is that the relationship you'd choose if you were being intentional about it?
Because there's a big difference between using social media to stay connected with people you care about or to find things that genuinely interest you, versus just scrolling automatically because you don't know what else to do with your hands. And most of us do both, in different proportions on different days.
One is a choice, one is a habit that's running you.
Because once you can see it clearly, even if you decide to keep doing exactly what you're doing, at least it's a decision, not just a drift.
And the question isn't really, is social media good or bad? It's more, do I know which one I'm doing right now? Am I choosing this or is this just happening?
What do you mean?
One thing I've noticed, and I think this connects to everything we've been talking about, is that on days when I'm less on my phone, I tend to have more of my own thoughts. Like actual thoughts, my own ideas, my own observations about things happening around me. Things I want to do or figure out or think through. On heavy phone days, my head is mostly full of other people's content, other people's thoughts. And on lighter days, there's more room for my own.
That's a really good way to put it. Your inner life has more space.
And it's not that the thoughts I have are particularly important or clever. They're usually very ordinary. What I feel like cooking, something I've been meaning to sort out, a memory that surfaces from nowhere. But they're mine. They come from my own head rather than being reactions to something I saw on a feed.
And I think that matters more than it sounds like it does, because a lot of who we are, how we feel about our lives, what we want, that's built from the quiet, uninterrupted time when we're just with our own minds. And if that time is constantly filled with external content, you lose some of that, which is a subtle shift, but a real one.
You become more of a receiver than a thinker.
Honestly, kind of. Not dramatically. I haven't deleted anything or done any big detox, but I notice things I didn't used to notice. Like I'll pick up my phone and I'll catch myself doing it automatically, and sometimes I'll just put it down. Not because I've told myself I'm not allowed, just because I noticed, and in that specific moment, I'd rather not.
I want to ask you something honestly. After everything you've thought about and noticed, do you actually use social media differently now than you did before?
Yeah, just noticing. It doesn't sound like much, but it changes the dynamic a little, from something happening to you to something you're at least partly watching happen. And that distance is enough to make small choices possible.
That's the key thing, isn't it? Noticing. I've been trying something similar. Not rules, not restrictions, just occasionally asking, do I actually want to open this right now, or am I just reaching? And sometimes the answer is genuinely yes, I want to. And sometimes it's, Actually, nah, not really.
And when it's no, what do you do instead? But it's a choice rather than a reflex.
Usually nothing particularly interesting. I just don't open the app, and I sit there for a minute, or I look out the window, or I go back to whatever I was doing. Nothing dramatic.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about automatic behavior, about time and where it goes, about the quiet emotional effects, about attention and what heavy social media use does to it, and about what a real day without it might actually feel like, morning to night.
Right. And somehow that makes it feel different, even if the behavior isn't wildly different.
Because most of us have just never really stopped to look at it. Social media arrived, became part of life, and now it's just there, and we've all just kind of accepted that as the shape of things.
And none of those things are simple. None of them have a clean answer. But I think they're worth sitting with.
And maybe that's worth one day's experiment, just to see, just to notice what's actually there when the feed isn't.
Without ever really choosing it.
Genuinely useful, because then you chose to come back, not just drifted back.
Or not. That's okay too. This isn't a prescription. You might try it and think, honestly, I missed it and I'm glad to come back. And that's useful information as well.
We want to leave you with one question, and we'd love to hear your answer in the comments, because genuinely, the comments on this podcast are one of our favorite parts, and we read them.
And knowing the difference between drifting and choosing is worth something, whatever you end up choosing.
Your time? Because suddenly you'd have more of it, or at least you'd notice it differently.
Your mood? Because the quiet background noise of comparison and other people's highlights would go quiet.
We're really curious what you think. And even if you've never tried it, what's your gut feeling?
Which one do you think would shift first? Leave your answer in the comments. Time, mood, or focus, or something completely different that we didn't think of.
We love hearing from you. This topic is one we both think about quite a bit, and it felt good to talk through it properly, in real language at a real pace.
Trust your gut. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. It genuinely means a lot. If you're practicing your English and you found this episode useful or even just interesting, please subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We have more conversations like this one on the way.
Real topics, real conversations, real English. That's what we're here for. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode.
Take care of yourselves.